Welcome to the final part of the series of the Active Directory project. If you haven't seen the previous parts, where we go over how to build out a diagram for this lab, install our virtual machines, configure our tools and Active Directory, I highly recommend you watch those first to get up to speed. Today's objective is to use Kali Linux to perform a brute force attack onto our users, giving you a chance to see what this looks like by using Splunk to query for this activity. Afterwards, we will set up and install AtomicRedTeam and run a test together. So in the future, you know how to use AtomicRedTeam to generate telemetry and detect similar attacks in the future. Also, if you have a machine that does not have at least 16 gigs of RAM, now will be a good time to change both the DC and target machine's RAM to 2 gigs instead of 4. Let's get started. On our Kali Linux machine, the default credentials are Kali and Kali for the password. We want to set up a static IP address of 192.168.10.250 as per our diagram. To do this, we can right-click the Ethernet icon at the top and select Edit Connections. We want to set a static IP address of 192.168.10.250 as per our diagram. And to do that, we can right-click the Ethernet icon at the top and select Edit Connections. We want to select the first profile, which in my case is called Wired Connection 1. And at the bottom left, select the cog icon. And then select IPv4 settings. And under the drop-down, it is currently set to automatic DHCP. We want to click on that and select manual. Click on add. And for the IP address, we'll type in 192.168.10.250. The net mask is a /24. And the gateway is 192.168.10.1. For the DNS server, 8.8.8.8. And we'll hit save. I'll close this out, right click, and click on Open Terminal here. Now type in IP space A, and you might notice that our IP did not change yet. If you take a look over here, it is 192.168.10.20. And to reflect these changes, we can simply click on the Ethernet icon and click Disconnect. This will disconnect our network interface, and then we can click on it again and select our profile of Wired Connection 1. Clear out the screen, and now let's type in IP space A again, and we do get our IP address of 192.168.10.250. And just like anything else, let's verify our connectivity by pinging google.com. And we have connectivity. Now let's try pinging our Splunk server, which is 192.168.10.10, and we get connectivity. Now let's update and upgrade our repositories by typing in sudo apt-get update and sudo apt-get upgrade with a -y. Type in Kali for the password, and depending on your download speeds, this might take some time. Once the update and upgrade is finished, we can start setting up our attack by first creating a new directory called ad-project. And to do that, we'll type in mkdir, and I'll type in ad-project. This will create a directory on our desktop, and all of the files that we will create and use will be put into this directory. For our attack today, I'll be using a tool called Crowbar, and we can install this by typing in sudo apt-get install-y crowbar. Type in the password, and it should go out and install our tool. So this is the tool that we will use to perform brute force attacks, and we can target either our domain controller or our target machine. And I have to say this, please do not target any assets that you do not have permission to do so. Only use this for educational purposes and use this for your labs on machines that you own. Now that we have this tool installed, we want to use a popular word list called RockU that comes with Kali Linux. This is found under the directory user/share/wordlist. And if I type in ls, we can see that there is a file called rocku.txt.gz. We can unzip this file using gunzip. So let's type in sudo gunzip rocku and type in ls again. And now we should see rocku.txt. Let's copy this file onto our AD project folder by typing in cp rocku.txt, squiggly line, / desktop /ad-project. And I'll hit tab for auto completion. Hit enter. And now let's change in to our AD project directory. I'll type in clear to clear out the screen and ls-lh. We see the file size of rocku.txt, which is about 134 megs. So this contains quite a bit of password, and we don't want to use all of it for the sake of this demo. So instead, we'll use the first 20 lines. And to do that, I'll use the command head-n 20 to specify I only want 20 lines. Point it to rocku.txt, and if I hit enter, I'll see 20 lines. I'll clear this out and I'll output it to a file called passwords.txt. And we can do this by putting in a greater than sign right here, and I'll list out passwords.txt. Hit enter, type in ls, and we should see a passwords.txt. We can open this up by typing in cat, type in our passwords.txt, and hit enter. And we do see our 20 lines. Now, as an attacker, you would probably do a lot of reconnaissance, probably set up some basic Active Directory attacks. But let's just say in our scenario, we know we want to target a certain password. So that's what I'll do. I'll type in nano-password.txt to edit it. And at the very bottom, I'll type in the super secure password. And I'll save it out by holding Control X, type in Y, enter. Now, if we cat out passwords.txt again, we should see our super secure password at the bottom. Now, before we launch the attack, let's head over to our Windows target machine. On our Windows target machine, we want to enable remote desktop. And to do that, we want to search up for PC. So we'll go ahead and type in PC and we'll click on properties. Once we open that up, we can scroll down and click on advanced system settings, and we'll log in with the administrator account. Once we have this opened, we want to click on the Remote tab. And then at the bottom, you want to select Allow Remote Connections to this computer. And we'll select Users, click on Add, and we'll put in our 2 users. So one is Jenny Smith. I'll click on Check Names. And the second is Terry Smith. So T Smith. Check names again. And once those are good to go, we can click on OK, hit Apply, click OK to close it out. So now we have enabled remote desktop onto our target machine. If you want, you can enable remote desktop on your Active Directory server, but we're going to just skip on that for now and just only focus on our target machine. Let's head back over to our Kali Linux machine. So I'll go ahead and clear out the screen. And to use our tool, we'll just type in crowbar with a -H flag. This way we can see the help menu and see what kind of options are available for us. If we scroll all the way to the top, we can see that the description, Crowbar is a brute force tool which supports OpenVPN, Remote Desktop Protocol, SSH private keys, and VNC keys. The service that we're interested here is Remote Desktop Protocol. This is why we're using this tool and why we enabled RDP. The command that I'll use with Crowbar is the following. I'll use the -B flag to specify my service, and in my case, it is RDP, which is Remote Desktop Protocol, -u, and then I'll specify the account of interest. For this example, let's just say we are targeting Terry Smith. So that is T Smith, and then -C to specify a password list. We did create one earlier, and that was called passwords.txt. Lastly, I'll type in -s to specify my source IP. And the target machine's IP was 192.168.10.100. And we must specify a CIDR notation. I'll use the /32 CIDR notation instead of /24. This is because I only want to target this one IP. Again, this goes back to networking, and if you aren't sure what I'm talking about, do take some time to learn more about networking fundamentals. I'll hit enter to run the command. Once we execute Crowbar, it will start trying out all of the passwords that are listed under the passwords.txt file. And eventually, as we can see, we have an RDP success with the username of T Smith and the password right here. Pretty cool. So let's now head over to Splunk and see what telemetry we had generated. Now that we're in Splunk, we'll select Search and Reporting. And because we did generate the attack, we know that this occurred within the past 15 minutes. And we also know that the targeted user was T Smith. So let's narrow down our search and only look for events related to T Smith. So I'll type in index equals endpoint, and then I'll click on the time and I'll say last 15 minutes. And I'll also add in T Smith and hit enter. So right away we have 23 events. And if we scroll down just a little bit, we have a field name called event code. Now, if we click on that, we see a total of 20 count for the event ID of 4625. Now, if we were to search what that means, so we can type in event ID 4625. We can click into Ultimate Windows Security, and it says here, an account failed to log on. So this means that there was 20 failed attempts to log into T Smith's account, which is correct. If you recall our passwords.txt file, there was a total of 21 passwords, one of them being the correct one. Now, if I were to just select 4625, it would automatically update our query and search for it, as you can see with the 20 events here. And if we scroll down, I want you to take a look at the time. So it says 1:35:33. And you might notice that all of these events are happening pretty much at the same time, which can be a clear indication of brute force activity. Now, if we take a look at event code 4624, we have one event. And if you're not sure what 4624 is, we can head back over to the Ultimate Windows Security, and then we'll type in 4624, and it says an account was successfully logged on. Head back over to our Splunk. We can expand this event by clicking on Show All 70 Lines. And if we were to scroll down just a bit, we do happen to see our workstation name as Kali, as well as its IP address that it's trying to log in from. And this does indeed belong to our Kali Linux machine. Next, let's install AtomicRedTeam on our target machine, and then we can run some tests on it. To do that, we'll have to open up PowerShell with administrator privileges. So we'll search for PowerShell and run as administrator. We'll log in using the administrator account, and then we'll run the following command: set-execution policy bypass current user, and then hit enter. We want to type in Y and then hit enter. Next, we'll install the AtomicRedTeam framework, but before we actually do that, let's set an exclusion for the entire C drive, as Microsoft Defender will detect and remove some of the files from AtomicRedTeam. So to do that, we'll click on the up arrow and click on Windows Security and click on Virus and Threat Protection, Manage Settings, scroll down. Under Exclusion, we want to add or remove exclusion. Click on Add an Exclusion and then select Folder. Simply select this PC, scroll down and select our C drive, and then click on Select Folder. We'll have to log in again as administrator, and we should see an exclusion for the C drive. Now we can start installing AtomicRedTeam. To install AtomicRedTeam, you want to run the following command, and I'll put this in the description down below. This will go out and grab AtomicRedTeam and install it onto your target machine. When you see this, you want to press Y and hit enter to install the dependencies. And once AtomicRedTeam is completed, head over to the C drive and then click under the directory AtomicRedTeam. Here we will see what are called atomics. If we go into that, we see a bunch of technique IDs, and these map back to MITRE ATT&CK framework. So if we head over to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, if we scroll down to the matrix for enterprise, and if we highlight any of them, we notice that, hey, there is a technique ID of T1190. So if that is something we wanted to test, we can take a look and see if there's any T1190. And there doesn't appear to be any, so that's okay. We can try and test out maybe a persistence tactic, perhaps a create account, so T1136. We can take a look and see if there's any T1136. And we do happen to see 3 of them here. So there's 1, 2, and 3. If we go and look at our MITRE ATT&CK framework, we see that 1 is local account, 2 is domain account, and 3 is cloud account. And looking at our atomics, we have all 3 options. In this example, let's go ahead and use the first one, which is the local account. So I'll go ahead and clear the screen here. And to use the command, we type in invoke-atomic test, and then we'll type in the technique ID, which was T1136.001. and then I'll hit enter. So this will automatically generate telemetry based on creating a local account. I want you to take a look at the username that was created, which is new local user. And now that our command has finished running, we can go and look into Splunk and search specifically for new local user. We'll type in index equals endpoint, and it was new local user. And look at that, we don't get any events. That's kind of odd, isn't it? But in a way, that's actually a good thing, because this now tells you that you're blind to this activity. If an attacker compromised your system and created a local account, with your current settings, you will not be able to detect that activity. This is why I love Atomic Red Team. It will identify the gaps in visibility for you. It will also generate the telemetry to see if you can actually detect that activity. Let's do another example here. We'll go into MITRE ATT&CK, and this time I will select the command and scripting interpreter. So this one is T1059. Do we have any T1059? And we do have a couple of them. We have one all the way up until 7. So I think that's all of the sub techniques there. We can expand that. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's PowerShell, which I know for sure we should be able to see. So why don't we do that? We'll execute that technique. So I'll clear out the screen, press the up arrow key, and then it was T1059, was it? Let me double check. Yeah, T1059.001, and then hit enter. So Defender is catching some threats. We see a PowerShell command here, exec bypass no profile. Perhaps that is something we can search for in Splunk. Let's go ahead and open up Splunk and take a look. I'll change the last time to 15 minutes. And actually, look at that. We do see a new local user. Okay, cool. So it just took some time, but the concept still applies. So we can detect that activity. However, if you happen to see no events, even after waiting for a bit, then that means you have a gap in visibility. Now, if we were to look at PowerShell, scrolling down, we do see an event over here. It is quite hard to see, but I'll zoom in. We see exec bypass no profile XML. And if you recall, in our PowerShell window, that is this command right here. So this means that, hey, we can build alerts to detect on this activity in the future if we wanted to, along with creating a new local user account. Now that we know that the event actually generates, it just takes a little time. Before we end, there is one last thing I wanted to talk about, and that is with Kali Linux. In my example, I used tsmith with the password of this password. Now, if you created a different account with a different password and you want to follow along, you need to make sure that your password is listed in the passwords.txt file. Because as you can see at the bottom, my password is right there. So if your password to tsmith or to another user account was, let's just say, summer 2024 with an exclamation mark, then you need to make sure you put that into your passwords.txt file. Otherwise, this tool wouldn't be able to brute force successfully. So that's just one quick note. And if you're new to VirtualBox and you don't know what a snapshot is, it's essentially a backup. So if I did happen to break something and my Kali Linux no longer works, for example, I can revert it back to a snapshot to a known good state. And to take a snapshot, you simply click on Machine at the top and select Take Snapshot. And then you want to put in a name if you wanted to, also with a description, and hit OK. Now to revert to a snapshot, there are a lot of different options, but you can simply click on Close and then just check Restore Current Snapshot. And that's it. If you have followed along, you have successfully completed the Active Directory project. And I hope that you had as much fun as I did creating this. We went over a ton of material, and I know it can get pretty technical very quickly. I would encourage you to take a look at my video about MITRE ATT&CK and Atomic Red Team if you got lost during that section. I cannot stress this enough. If you want to become an amazing blue teamer, you must understand how MITRE ATT&CK works, as this will provide you with some guidance on what an attacker might do once they compromise an environment. The SOC course that I'm currently building will cover this and will also include a lot of labs that will allow you to query and find evil using MITRE ATT&CK. I am not lying when I say this. I am going to transform you. If you are an aspiring blue teamer, specifically within the security operations domain, you will love this course. I'll leave a link down below for you to sign up if you're interested. It will be a paid course, and I'll provide an update on pricing, hopefully sometime in April when I begin to finalize all of the content. It would mean a lot to me if you shared this project with other aspiring analysts who want to get some hands on experience. And seriously, thank you so much for watching, and I truly hope that this has helped you in any way. Remember to stay curious and do things differently.